Hello, friends. Happy to be here with you today, and I want to talk about the 5 phases of entrepreneurship. So, as an entrepreneur, you know that your business is always evolving, and it's always growing, and it's always changing. So, after owning a $1 million floral and event business for the past 30 years and working with clients who are building their businesses as well, I've realized that there's several phases that most businesses go through as they grow and evolve. So knowing where you're at in these phases is key to developing and growing your business to a level that most can't compete with. So what I'm going to do is give you the overview of what those stages are today, and then I'll have a series that will follow this that will dive into each of the phases and show you how to be able to go from one to the other. So if that's interesting to you, well, then keep on listening today, and I hope you join me in the chat. I'm Christy Lopez, and you're about to experience a new way to thrive in your business, in your entrepreneurship, in life, and by leaning into what you love and who you are and what you are standing up for. You get to stand up for what you want to create. And we will go against the grain so we can say no, right, to outdated norms that are in our industry. And you're ready probably to say yes to that so that you can create the life and the business you crave, right? So I'm sure it's no surprise to you that we're going to talk about business, specifically entrepreneurship again. And today I'll actually talk about something a little bit different. And I call the 5 phases of entrepreneurship because there are 5 phases that entrepreneurs go through when creating their business. And I don't think a lot of people understand this. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, especially us as creatives, just go about our business focusing on what we love to create. And you might be struggling in other areas, possibly struggling with getting new leads, how to communicate, or perhaps how to even raise your prices so that you can stay in business and thrive as things are changing fast around us. And it may have happened to you that your business was driving along at a fast pace, and then with the changes happening in our world, that all came to a fast stop. Or it may be that with the changes, you decided to jump in and do something you love doing as a business, right? And you may be in this situation now that you're having to decide what's next, or where do I go from here? Each of these phases addresses 6 of the main activities that we deal with in business: our sales, our marketing, the fulfillment, that's our products and services that we offer, the operations and administration, as well as ourselves and the team that we may or may not have. So, however, for the most part of today, I'll be touching on the overview of each phase, mostly as it pertains to where you're at, primarily maybe in your sales and marketing. For instance, if you own a floral business, you've maybe put a huge focus on the floral design trend that is open and organic, right? Or perhaps you're focusing on the types of content to post on social media. And what I mean by that is that you're like, okay, I need to put out a lot of content. So I'm going to show a bunch of images of my work. Okay, now the trend is that people are dancing around and pointing in reels. So now I'm going to start dancing and pointing in reels. Very much like, tell me the things I need to do to bring in the business and I'll do it. And so you're just chasing the things that you think a certain type of content or a certain platform or a certain type of design is what's going to make the difference between you getting noticed and not getting noticed. And then you hit a plateau. I've been doing this thing, or I've been doing the same thing everybody else is doing, and I'm still not seeing the results I want. It's not working even though I'm doing all the action, doing all the things that you need to implement, meaning I'm doing all the things that people told me to do, and I'm doing all the things that other people are doing, but it's not working. So once people hit that plateau, then they hop back onto, what am I doing? What isn't right? I'm not attracting the right people, or I'm not creating the demand, or no one's accepting my proposals. People aren't showing up to my consultations or calling me. And you start realizing it might be that I'm not communicating the right way. This is usually when you're coming out of the first phase of entrepreneurship and ready to enter into phase 2. So the next problem that you face is that you're like, okay, tell me how to communicate then. I just need to know what to say. Give me the framework, give me the process, give me the things to say. And that's still a very kind of masculine energy. Give me the things to do. You went from the content of what to do in the communication, but still focusing on the doing part. And people think that there's a magic key or a magic solution when it comes to communicating to their audience. If I just say design like this, follow this recipe, follow this content strategy, then everything's going to be fine. However, that's not how communication is. Learning to communicate is really a lot more like feminine energy. It's the invisible things. It comes from the subconscious part of our brain. You have to understand that your marketing and your communication is something that evolves and it doesn't stop. It's kind of like your own personal growth. And there's never an end to your own personal growth, right? You can grow as much as you want, and you'll probably never get to the end of your internal growth as a human being. So it's the same thing with your business. What you start with won't be what you end with. But you do have to get started in order to get there. And then you have to continue putting it out there and testing. And it's not just one and done process. It's really an evolution. That's why I call it the phases of entrepreneurship. So after working in my own business and working with others now too, I realized that there are several phases that people are going to go through when they're evolving as entrepreneurs. And again, you might find yourself in one of these phases right now as I go through them. And then you might even realize that you might be in between two levels in some of the areas. The idea here is that what I want you to do is to recognize where you're at. And then I want you to recognize where you want to go, which is going to be obviously phase 5. You're not going to stay there even at phase 5. And what I really want you to take away is that you and your business are a living, breathing thing. And it's constantly evolving. It does take testing. It takes implementing. It takes learning to perfect. And what I always say to people is that to see the fastest results are the people that move quicker up through these phases, right? They're the ones who focus on two things. They focus on one, evolvement. They understand that to get a great business, you need to learn and test and try and tweak and adjust. But they also know that there has to be some level of mastery over their craft. And if you don't have mastery yet, that's fine. Start focusing on that. Again, mastery isn't experience necessarily, because there are a lot of entrepreneurs out there that have experience, the kind that is the same experience year after year after year. You know, a mentor I follow says it this way: all experience will get you is failure, pain, suffering, and mistakes. Experience will guarantee those things, but it doesn't guarantee that you'll actually have the solution. So mastery is when the solution comes in. And when you have mastery, you just don't know one way to get to the solution. You know the solution so well, and you know that the solution may change based on certain circumstances or individuals or whatever. But that's what mastery is in your craft and your business. You know exactly what this person needs, how to get them there, and that path may not be the same for a person A, B, or C. So let's go through these 5 phases, And what I'll do is a series diving deeper into each phase and how to get out of each phase. So there's 5 phases. There's number 1, what I call the budding entrepreneur. There's the emerging entrepreneur. Then there's the status quo entrepreneur. There's the empowered entrepreneur. And the last level is the unleashed entrepreneur. This is when you've achieved mastery, and that's the goal, and that's where we want to be at. But there's so many different things within that level that you get to work on, right? So let's start with the budding entrepreneur. So the budding entrepreneur is where most of you start out. This is generally where new people are going to be starting out, and you're probably at first year or 2 in your business. You're definitely doing only 0 to maybe 5K monthly, some even up to 250,000 a year. Okay. But basically the main problem here is that you can't get eyes on your business. You're primarily unseen and unknown. You're mostly doing things on your own and haven't realized your brand yet. You're just designing what people order and most likely don't have any systems in place yet. And in order to win at business, we need 3 things. We need eyeballs on you, so they will stop the scroll and then get the eyes on you. We have to be able to then keep the eyes on you. And then the third thing is we get to create the demand then for your products and services. Those are the 3 things we need. So if you're the budding entrepreneur, you likely can't get the eyes on you. You're having a really hard time focusing or getting people to stop the scroll to even notice you. And it's just not working. You've probably got crickets every time you put out a piece of content. Most get some attention, but there isn't any substance to the marketing, so the sales are not helping you grow enough. Now, there could be a couple of reasons for this. And in the series that I'm going to do, I'll follow up with more detail on how to get out of that phase of your marketing and what causes it. But this is generally because 70% or more of your content is the same as everybody else, especially your competition. We need all sorts of different things. We've all heard that in order to sell, you need the know, the like, and the trust factor, right? Everyone says, just go out and get the know, like, and trust. But no one ever tells you how to get it. How do you get the know, like, and trust? Well, that's what I talk about inside my coaching. You get the know, like, and trust by using different forms and content. When we use content that is about connection, which is based on our values and beliefs, that builds rapport, that's trust. When we do what to do content, or that's when we start to become that authority. They start to know that we're the experts. They know that we know what we're talking about. And we may do thought reversals in our communication that can shift perspective, and it's getting people to see things differently for people, right? It's being able to get those 3 types of content, so that you can build the know, the like, and the trust factor. And it also then builds the demand. So if you're the budding entrepreneur, you're probably focusing too much on learning just about your craft and putting out your product and fulfillment, right? So the problem that you'll need to be focusing on, your sales and marketing too, because without it, you won't get seen. You're probably watching videos or taking every course you can just to regurgitate other people's products or services. And you've probably been studying other people and what they do, and you're just repeating it back, and there's not much original or uniqueness to your business yet. So you aren't seen in your space because you aren't doing anything differently. Okay, so again, our budding entrepreneur, you're at level 1, and you basically just cannot get eyes on you, and you're focusing more on learning your craft than figuring out your brand and marketing it too. So the next phase, though, is the emerging entrepreneur. This is when you actually get eyeballs on you, but nothing else, like getting views so people are seeing you. And you're not really getting much more than that. Like you might be getting a like here and there, a comment here and there, but the engagement from what you put out is really lacking. And even if you're getting engagement, it's not turning into sales. You're still having a major sales problem if you're the emerging entrepreneur. So when you move into this phase, it usually comes from an awareness of like, oh my gosh, I've got to grow to get my sales up. So you're developing, or you have developed, a brand, as well as putting some sales systems into place. You may have an email list, but you aren't engaging with them. You're posting consistently on your social media, and you have a following. Maybe even you're recognized in your local town or city. But in order to grow your sales, you have to put some strategies in place and communicate on a different level with your audience. You've leaned into seeing different ways to offer your products and services, maybe even learning from a few other people, right? So, however, your marketing strategies aren't there yet, but you still haven't mastered the art of communicating to that subconscious mind, which, by the way, is a huge focus in my group coaching. You know, when you read a good book, you don't logically think, okay, this book is good or bad. You instantly automatically go, this book is so good. Why? Because the book communicates to the subconscious mind. So usually the emerging entrepreneur hasn't mastered or perfected or even really worked on their communication in their content or even in their offerings. They're just focusing on shifting the way they deliver their content and their offers. The idea here is that the emerging entrepreneur, you're definitely getting traction, and you might be stopping the scroll, but that's about it. Getting the right clients to the sale is still a problem. So engagement is still a problem. People opting into your email list is still a problem, and you're generally still going to be under that 100,000 to 250,000 a year at this level. The level above is what I call the status quo entrepreneur. So the status quo entrepreneur is getting eyeballs on you, and you're keeping up with with everyone on you, and you're getting the engagement, but there's a plateau. You've got a team in place, your systems are working, but maybe not efficiently enough. And there's overwhelm and stress, and you're thinking about making changes, but haven't gotten there yet. So you're probably bored with your brand, and it doesn't seem to be relevant or reflective of who you are anymore. And one of the biggest problems is that you are one of many in your market. Think about Netflix. Do you remember when they started out as a DVD distribution service? Then they broke out of that mold and started a streaming service, which was completely different than anybody else had even thought of yet. But then along came Hulu, Apple TV, HBO Max, and now they are one of many. So again, a lot of people think engagement equals sales, followers equals sales, and they don't. You could have a great message, but if you're not keeping sales in mind, if you're not being intentional with creating demand, then it does you absolutely no good, and your sales and marketing will become stagnant. This is why we have influencers with 1 million followers, but they still have to go work a full-time job because they're not making any money off of their following. So the status quo entrepreneurs are being heard, but they aren't really growing, and they're not making any great money. So at this level, your revenue growth is probably about the same or just up by 2% overall. And it might be frustrating because you're probably experiencing a more difficult time finding newer clientele, or your offers are getting ghosted and you're being told that others are more competitive. You know that you deliver amazing products and services, and that leaves you confused. You're seen and heard, but it's not translating into the money that it should or the profits that it should, right? You relatively understand your numbers, but it's kind of like sales that do come in aren't hitting the marks that you thought. You have systems working, but they aren't very efficient, and your team is probably in place. However, you may be having trouble keeping them. Essentially, it's a little growth here, a little growth there. But it's not like you have a fire and all you need to do is just add more fuel to the fire and the fire gets bigger. That's not really what's going on. You just have a fire that just kind of stays the same, and even if you throw on another log, the fire just keeps staying the same. And that's because you haven't gotten to the level of scaling, and what's usually stopping the scaling problem is a lack of deepness inside of the message and the communication you bring. But people just really like you. They connect with you really well. And you're good at building connection with people, but you haven't really made yourself so different inside the space that people say this person is changing the game. So status quo entrepreneurs usually rely more on connection with their audience and often not really leaning into who they really are. When you're leaning into what you believe, people connect with that. But you haven't fully bridged the gap from building that connection and turning that connection into something that also people go like, I need this and I need it now. But when we graduate from that, when we start to focus on how to create demand and how to upgrade our product and service offerings, then we get to upgrade the sales systems, we refresh our brand and start running more strategic marketing campaigns, right? We then graduate to the empowered entrepreneur. So this is the eyeballs on you. They have eyeballs on you, you're keeping eyeballs on you, and you do have consistent sales, but they aren't scalable yet. The empowered entrepreneur is actually a good place to be because it means things are working. It means that your marketing and your communication is dialed in. And generally, most empowered entrepreneurs are growing at 3 to 5% monthly. Month after month after month, your audiences and your list is growing and your sales are growing because you've dialed in more of you. You rebranded and took a deep dive into what you're doing to make your business run like clockwork. However, you're outsourcing your weak areas of the business and you're stretching yourself, especially in your mindset, to realize that there are still roadblocks that come along with this phase. Your team has grown and you need to put some more time into having job descriptions and employee handbooks, as well as standard operating procedures, SOPs. You actually have people coming to you for your expertise. Like they're knocking the door down. They're DMing you, how do I work with you? And you usually have a good understanding of your communication skills and your messaging, right? You're usually like on a top 1, 2, or 3 experts inside of your space or industry or area, right? You're probably close to $1 million business, if not more at this point. When you're the empowered entrepreneur, people, they're not coming to you because of your work. And I didn't even realize that this was a thing until people started, people would say, I just love your work. And the approach that you take is so different. You're doing things that at this point then that others haven't been doing before. You're talking about things that people have never talked about before with them. And when people say, I love your work, what they're really saying is, you have such a different approach to what you do that I know that there's a level of mastery that you have because you're creating something brand spanking new. I've never seen it before. That is your work. You're actually working on building something versus regurgitating expertise. And again, there's nothing wrong with regurgitating expertise, but when you regurgitate expertise, you're still an expert in a sea of experts around you. The empowered entrepreneur is probably doing pretty well. And there's nothing wrong with being at any one of these levels, right? These 5 levels. You just have to realize no matter what level you're at, the budding entrepreneur, the emerging, the status quo, there's always going to be one more level. Now, the final level is when you have unleashed success. When you are the unleashed entrepreneur, you have attained that you're scaling sales consistently. People are coming to you for your unique method of how you deliver the product and the services that you have. And when I say is when you have mastery, mastery comes from discovering things that other people haven't discovered yet. And when you discover things that other people haven't discovered yet, that means you can do things that people haven't done yet. So when you're focusing on your own work, you're actually not just renaming things and trying to rename other people's work, you're actually discovering things that you haven't discovered before. You're creating high-level lead generation opportunities. You have a sales and marketing team in-house. When you move out of the empowering entrepreneur and into the unleashed entrepreneur phase, what you have done is you've created new standards inside of your space or your industry. You have mastery over your craft, which means you literally get to change your industry and your niche, or you're creating a brand new niche, right? You get to say, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to create a life and a business that works for me and creates an atmosphere for my team that is team-centered. I'm going to set goals that outperform what I can imagine. An unleashed entrepreneur is the one that recognizes where their strengths and weaknesses are and uses them to not only make their life, but the people around them better. What I see that's not helping entrepreneurs is that what people actually think is normal actually will cause them pain and suffering. I can look at how I can go deeper than others teaching in my space, right? When people just tell you, it's what I said earlier, just build the know, like, and trust. That's the answer to get people to connect with you. Okay, I get it, but are you showing them how to build that know, like, and trust? Is that how you're learning it? Do those other teachers actually know what that is? They aren't explaining it to you. How do you develop that trust? And how do you get to understand more of what goes in not only your subconscious mind, but also those of your audience? You get the opportunity to connect with them and draw them in with your story and test the communication and your products and your services. You can finally uncover what it's like to experiment and know how the like and trust is built. So this teaching today is for you, and to move you and your focus to getting more mastery and moving up from budding to emerging to status quo, moving those entrepreneurs to the empowered entrepreneur and the unleashed entrepreneur. So here's the thing. You get to evolve in your business because entrepreneurship continues to evolve when you have mastery over your craft. And I'm always trying to raise my awareness. I'm always trying to raise my level of thinking. Here's what will happen as you lead in your space. The things you discover will become norms. So if you get comfortable, you're like, I've hit that unleashed entrepreneur phase that Christy's talking about. I'm good. You're only going to be good for a few years until those become the standards of right now. So I'm always looking to grow and go deeper and to continue going deeper so that I continue to raise the standard within my space. And that's what we want to do as we move through these phases, and we want to make sure that we land solidly, right? The entrepreneurs that see the fastest and the best results in their businesses, from my experience, are the ones who focus on mastery of their craft and mastery in their business, and they stay there. Those are the ones that also have the highest level of marketing and know how to communicate. So as I wrap up, you'll see that I have a series that will go for a bit, that will go a bit deeper into each phase and help you identify where you're at and why you are there now and how you can get get out of that place and into the next phase. But the thing is, in order to move up those levels, you're going to need a mentor. And a mentor generally is someone who has mastery over their craft, someone who not only knows one solution, but several different solutions. And I want to be that mentor with you, because the thing is, you can only think from a place that you know. So if you're going to have a mentor, you need to have one that speaks from the knowing, who's actually done it, and not only done it once, but done it again and again, so that they know the best way for you to move out of it. And that's what these next couple of trainings will be. I'm going to be your mentor. So with that said, I will see you next time. I will also put a link in where you can go to the website and download a PDF of the phases of entrepreneurship so you can look them over for yourself. So that's it for now. Have a great week.